You're looking live at the chambers of the Illinois House of Representatives in Springfield, where in just a moment, Governor Pat Quinn will deliver his annual State of the State message to a joint session of the Illinois General Assembly. This is a special edition of Illinois Lawmakers. Hello, I'm Jak Tichenor, along with Rich Miller of the CapitalFacts.com. Rich, this is going to have to be the speech of a lifetime for this governor.
Well, yeah, the state has not been in very good shape. The governor is going to try to say today that it's finally turned the corner. He's going to try to own the accomplishments that were made last year. He's going to point out where things are looking brighter and own that as well. This is really his first campaign speech of 2014.
And he is now shaking hands with Speaker Madigan and Senate President John Cullerton, just about ready to make his way to the rostrum there and begin what is his fifth State of the State address to the people of Illinois.
President Cullerton and Speaker Madigan, Leader Radogno and Leader Durkin, Lieutenant Governor Simon and Attorney General Madigan, Secretary White, Treasurer Rutherford, members of the General Assembly, and distinguished guests. Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by recognizing two public servants who gave their full measure of devotion to all of us on Monday night. Illinois tollway worker Vincent Petrella lost his life doing his job. Vincent was struck and killed on I-88 while helping a truck driver in distress. He served with the tollway for 13 years. He leaves his wife, Sandra, and two young children behind. And we ask God to bless his immortal soul. Illinois State Police Trooper Douglas Balder was with Vincent that night. At this hour, Trooper Balder is battling for his life at Loyola University Medical Center in Maywood. We thank him for his ethic of service, and we pray for his recovery. So please join me now in a moment of silence and prayer for Vincent Petrella and Trooper Douglas Balder. Thank you. In Illinois, we honor our heroes, and we're grateful for their service. And I'd like to welcome two more Illinois heroes, Sergeant Brent Adkins and Sergeant Benjamin Greist of the Illinois National Guard. Shortly after midnight, on Monday, January 6th, they answered the call. Multiple semis had jackknifed and caused a pileup on I-57 and I-70 near Effingham. The drifts were so thick and the snow falling so hard that even our snowplows could not clear the way. And more than 400 motorists were stranded in wind chills of 30 degrees below. Sergeant Adkins and Sergeant Greist traveled from the National Guard Armory in Mattoon through Arctic conditions in the middle of the night with their wrecker in tow. That's a military vehicle that can lift more than 10 tons. They cleared the road and rescued hundreds of people. Thank you, sergeants, for getting the job done. Our Illinois National Guard is the best of the best, and we're very and profoundly grateful to every single member who volunteers for the Illinois National Guard. And we know that just weeks earlier, in November, many of our communities were devastated by deadly tornadoes. 8 people lost their lives, and 2,265 lost their homes. 6-year-old Brevin Hunter of Washington, Illinois, was one who lost his home. Brevin warned his mom to seek cover in their family's basement just moments before the tornado decimated their home. Brevin saved her life. Brevin and his family are here today, and let's give them applause. Way to go there, Brevin. Today and every day, we all belong to Washington, to Brookport, to Gifford, to New Minden, and to Diamond. We know that emergencies test the preparedness and resilience of our government and of our people. And we have been well tested. In the last 5 years, Illinois has been through 11 natural disasters. We've watched droughts plague our farmers, the backbone of our economy. We saw last April's pervasive flooding in 49 counties. We remember the tragic tornado in Harrisburg just 2 years ago. Extreme weather is a reality with devastating effects, and it demands our constant readiness. And each and every time, our state workers, our service members, and our first responders have gotten the job done. And I think it's important that we realize that it isn't just natural disasters were all that we managed in the past 5 years. Some of the disasters were of man-made variety. Exactly 5 years ago this day, I was sworn in as governor at Illinois' darkest moment. We were facing an unprecedented triple crisis of government corruption, economic collapse, and financial instability. We had one former governor in jail and another one on the way to jail. And our economy had plunged into the worst recession since the Great Depression, brought to its knees by greedy and corrupt financiers. And our financial house was on fire, set ablaze by decades of mismanagement and an utter lack of willingness to make tough calls. Hard-working people in Illinois lost their jobs, their homes, and their faith in those they'd entrusted with their votes. It was a perfect storm, and it left destruction in its path. We all knew that repairing the damage that had been done over decades would not happen overnight. But over the past 5 years, we've rebuilt, one hard step at a time, and we've been getting the job done. Illinois is making a comeback. First, we restored integrity to state government, passing a strong new ethics code, campaign finance reform, and a new constitutional amendment to allow voters to recall any governor guilty of corruption. When I took the oath of office, state government hadn't properly invested in our infrastructure in 10 years. But within 10 weeks, we passed the largest construction program in Illinois history. So far, we've built and repaired 7,595 miles of road, 1,311 bridges, and 978 schools. 5 years ago, Illinois did not guarantee equal rights to all couples. Our state did not even provide civil unions. Today, we embrace full marriage equality. It's the law of the land. And unlike our predecessors, we've made the tough calls to balance our budget. We cut more than $1 billion in state spending. We overhauled our Medicaid program to save taxpayers over $2 billion. And even as we took hard steps to return Illinois to sound financial footing, we did it with compassion, preserving the safety net to protect the most vulnerable. We also accomplished comprehensive pension reform, something that no governor or legislature had been able to do. Previous governors and legislators from both parties created the pension crisis. They did not make the required payments into the pension funds. There was no fiscal accountability, and it led to a culture of instability, shaking the confidence of taxpayers and businesses. Resolving Illinois' pension crisis was the tallest task of all. But together, we got the job done. Since I took office, we have made the full pension payment every single year. We passed a historic pension reform law for new employees in 2010. And last year, we enacted necessary and comprehensive pension reform that Moody's said may be the largest reform package implemented by any state in the nation. Thanks to all of you who voted yes. And a special thank you for the hard work of the Legislative Conference Committee members, Senator Raoul, Representative Nekritz, Senator Biss, Representative Sanger, Representative Zalewski, Senator Murphy, Senator Brady, and Representative Tracy. And thank you, House Speaker Mike Madigan, and Senate President John Cullerton, and Leader Christine Radogno, and Leader Jim Durkin. It was hard, it was painful, it took political courage, but together we got the job done. Today we can tell the people of Illinois, we stopped the bleeding, we turned the corner, and Illinois is making a comeback. But now, as we head into 2014, we know we have more work to do. That's why today I'm laying out a 5-year blueprint for jobs and economic growth in Illinois. It's a blueprint that builds on the foundation we've laid these past 5 years. And it's a blueprint that recognizes that a truly strong economy relies not just on jobs, but on fairness and inclusion. If we follow this blueprint, we'll do 3 things: create more jobs, deliver stronger education, and build an economy that works for everyone. Of course, economic growth always starts with jobs, and we've seen progress on this front. Since the recovery began in January of 2010, Illinois has added 280,000 private sector jobs. Unemployment was at 11.3% at the height of the Great Recession. And today, it's at its lowest point in almost 5 years. In fact, since last May, Illinois has led the Midwest in new jobs created. And 2 years ago, with the strong support of the Illinois Manufacturers Association and the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, we reformed our workers' compensation system and our unemployment insurance system. These reforms have saved hundreds of millions of dollars, but we know we have much more work to do. And we'll start with a renewed focus on small business. 3 out of every 4 Illinois employers are small businesses. And in the last 5 years, we've helped them. Through our Advantage Illinois program, we've provided loans and investments to help small business grow. One of them, Allcell, a new battery manufacturer on the southwest side of Chicago. Allcell has leveraged our programs to grow from 6 full-time employees to 40 in just 4 years. And today, they're exporting all over the world. Allcell's founder and CEO, Saeed Al-Holjaj, is with us here today. Saeed, we thank you and salute you and all of our small businesses for your hard work. They're all getting the job done, but we have to do more to support our small businesses, especially as they get started. In Illinois, new businesses have long paid a $500 LLC fee when they open up shop. Let's reduce this fee to $39, the lowest in the nation, and provide a boost to our innovators. This small but important step will encourage entrepreneurs to start their business and put more people to work right here in Illinois. And we won't stop there. Today, I'm issuing an executive order to establish a small business advocate whose sole focus will be to examine policies and proposals through the lens of how they impact Illinois small businesses. Let's make life easier for our small businesses and make sure small business always means big business in Illinois. In the past 5 years, we've also worked to level the playing field for minority and women-owned businesses. We established a new revolving loan program at IDOT, thanks to the great work of Senator Matty Hunter. And we expanded contracting goals for these small businesses. As a result, we've increased state contracts to minority and women-owned firms by nearly 60% since I took office, an increase of 1,921 contracts worth more than $120 million. In the Metro East, African-American businesses and workers helped build the new Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge over the Mississippi River, which we will soon dedicate. They're getting the job done, and our businesses need modern bridges, modern highways and railroads and water systems. A sound infrastructure is critical to a strong economy. In the last 5 years, through our Illinois Jobs Now program, we've invested more than $31 billion into our infrastructure, and this has supported more than 400,000 jobs. Thanks to these investments, we constructed the Morgan Street Bridge in Rockford. We're building a wider Route 13 in Southern Illinois. We're expanding the John Deere Expressway in the Quad Cities, and construction is underway on the new Circle Interchange to relieve congestion on the Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Dan Ryan expressways. After years of gridlock, we're moving forward on our plan to build a new South Suburban airport. And we're making the Ileana Expressway a reality, which will create thousands of jobs and strengthen our position as the largest inland port in the nation. Through our Clean Water Initiative, we're investing more than $1 billion in clean water and creating 28,000 jobs along the way. And these are good jobs, jobs for welders, for cement masons, for truck drivers, for operating engineers, for pipe fitters, for painters, for carpenters, for laborers. Through these projects, we're replacing ancient water mains, upgrading sewers, and building wastewater treatment plants all over our state, including in Pekin, in Decatur, in Kankakee, in Rockford, Spring Valley, and Murfreesboro. To date, we received 91 clean water applications from communities across Illinois. And this year, we'll expand our Clean Water Initiative and double this investment to include critical stormwater and flood control projects. When it comes to creating the infrastructure we need for a strong economy, we've been getting the job done. And there's more work to do. We've been also making progress when it comes to preparing our workforce for the 21st century jobs. Just on IllinoisJobLink.com, our employment opportunity website, there are more than 130,000 jobs available right now. But many of these jobs require very specific skills. And that's why we're preparing our workers for high-skill, in-demand jobs. That's a top priority. To help us fill those jobs, we've mobilized our education system behind our 60 by 2025 goal. We want 60% of our adult workforce to have a degree or a career certificate by the year 2025. And we've been exceeding our targets every year on this mission. Since 2008, our community colleges have grown the number of people graduating with degrees or career certificates by more than 30%. We've also expanded dual enrollment and early college opportunities for qualified students. But we can't finish the job if deserving students aren't able to afford a college education. So over the next 5 years, let's double the number of MAP college scholarships for students in need in Illinois. Our MAP scholarship program today helps about 140,000 students go to college. Students like Shamari Jackson and Adriana Rivas and Howard Brown, who are here today. By doubling the number of MAP scholarships, we can make sure deserving students in need are equipped to excel in the 21st century workplace. Another way that we can prepare our young people to succeed is through workplace experience. That's why we should expand our youth and young adult conservation corps. This will help at-risk young people get a job and gain valuable training and work experience. Through these programs, our young people will learn important skills and develop those skills while doing necessary work in state and local parks and conservation areas all across Illinois. Now, there's no question that our veterans already have strong skills, and we're making sure those skills count here in Illinois. Last year, I issued an executive order mandating the assessment of military training against our state licensing requirements. Thanks to the work that followed that executive order, we received funding from the National Governors Association. And in the coming academic year, we will launch veteran bridge programs for military medics to attain LPN degrees at Joliet Junior College, the College of DuPage, and Illinois Central College in Peoria. Our veterans got the job done for us when they served in uniform, and now we're getting the job done for them, making sure their training counts right here in Illinois. And part of our... Thank you. Part of our job strategy is investing in industries that are the future of the 21st century economy. That's why we invested in 1871, the digital hub in the Merchandise Mart that has grown over 200 startups and created more than 1,000 jobs in just 2 years. And that's why now we're going to invest in a new biohub for pharmaceutical, medical device, and health IT startups. Our life science industry in Illinois has a $98 billion economic footprint, and our new biohub is going to drive even more economic growth in that sector. And we should never forget, Illinois has always been a manufacturing hub, especially our auto manufacturers and their suppliers. When I took office, Chrysler employed just 200 people at its Belvedere plant. We partnered with Chrysler, and now Chrysler employs more than 4,700 workers at that same plant. 5 years ago, Ford had just one shift at its plant on the Chicago South Side. It had a total of 1,600 workers. We worked with Ford, and now Ford has 3 shifts with more than 5,100 workers. And in the last year alone, we've promoted Illinois around the world and gotten results. After my trade mission to Canada for PAL, a company that upgrades water systems, moved their North American headquarters to Elgin. After my trade mission to Germany, Rittal, an international manufacturer of IT and electrical enclosures, moved their North American headquarters from Ohio to Schaumburg. After our meetings in Japan, Nippon Sharyo, a world-class high-speed rail car manufacturer, chose Illinois for their expansion. And after meeting with Denmark's Grundfos, the largest water pump manufacturer in the world, they moved their North American headquarters to Downers Grove. That's more jobs and more opportunities for Illinois workers. Now, a strong economy also demands quality public education for all our students. And that starts with good teachers. Teachers change lives for the good. And in Illinois, we honor our teachers, and we appreciate their hard work. In the last 5 years, we've been getting the job done on education reform. Parents are now empowered with a report card on their children's schools. Teacher evaluations have strong benchmarks, and performance is prioritized over tenure. In fact, our reforms have become a model for the nation. But our unfinished job on education starts where it matters most, in early childhood. Study after study has shown that high-quality early childhood education provides the best return of any public investment we can make. More than $7 for every dollar invested. That's why our state invests in programs serving our at-risk children from birth all the way to kindergarten. Since I've taken office, I've always fought to preserve early childhood education from radical budget cuts. And we found a way to invest $45 million to build early childhood centers in high-need areas, such as Dalton and Kankakee and Cicero. Our state actually leads the nation in the number of 3-year-olds attending preschool. But the status quo is not enough. It's not even close. The reality is more than a third of our youngest and most vulnerable children don't have the opportunity to attend early learning programs before they enter kindergarten. That's unacceptable. At-risk children who don't receive early childhood education are 25% more likely to drop out of school, 40% more likely to become a teen parent, 50% more likely to be placed in special education, 60% more likely to never attend college, and 70% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime. Scripture tells us where there is no vision, the people perish. And that's why today I'm calling for a bold Birth to 5 initiative that will be focused on 3 keys to a healthy child: prenatal care, access to early learning opportunities, and strong parent support. This initiative actually starts before a mother gives birth to her child by ensuring that she has access to prenatal services throughout her pregnancy. The good news is that prenatal care is already available to expectant mothers with modest incomes through our existing programs. Yet 25% of our low-income mothers are not receiving the prenatal care they need. Children pay the price. Mothers who do not receive prenatal care are 3 times more likely to give birth to a low-weight baby, which leads to increased risks for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, learning difficulties, and poor development. And also, the taxpayers pay the price. The cost of a birth where a baby is low weight is 5 times that of a normal birth. In addition to significant medical needs that eventually burden the system, these children often require early intervention services, remedial education, and grade repetition. And they lose out on the opportunity to achieve their full potential. Through our Birth to 5 initiative, over the next 5 years, we will work with our community partners, schools and hospitals and faith-based organizations to identify expectant mothers and connect them to prenatal services. We can ensure more children are born into the opportunities they deserve, and we can save taxpayers money. But we won't stop there. When the human brain is forming in a child's early life, it provides a critical window of opportunity to develop key academic, social, and cognitive skills that will determine success in school and in life. That's why the second pillar of our Birth to 5 initiative is to provide every child with access to quality early learning opportunities. This is especially important for our African American and Latino children. Children like Cadence Marie Robinson, a 5-year-old who I recently met when I visited Spencer Technology Academy on the west side of Chicago. She sat on my knee, and she told me she was getting ready for kindergarten, and that she then read the numbers on my business card to me, something that she could do thanks to the Head Start program that she was attending. With strong early childhood education, kids like Cadence are set on a path for long-term success. We're really, really proud of you, Cadence. Thank you very much for what you're doing. We also see the importance of early childhood education in people like Christine Nickpon. Raised by a single mom in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood, Christine's family struggled every month to make ends meet. Her mother always knew she wanted more for her children, and after seeing a flyer, she enrolled Christine in an early learning program. Christine then went to high school, then to college, and last year she completed her master's degree at the University of Chicago. Today, she's a fellow at the Latino Policy Forum and striving for a career in early childhood. Good job and good choice, Christine. In 2009, I established the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development. And as a result, we've secured federal grants from Race to the Top that are allowing us to deliver high-quality early care and education programs. By properly investing in existing early learning programs and making this a budget priority, we can transform lives and save taxpayers' money. But we can't stop there. A parent is a child's first teacher and best teacher. Moms and dads play the most important role in promoting the healthy development of their children. And not all families, unfortunately, are equipped with the information and support that they need to create healthy learning environments. That's why the third critical part of our Birth to 5 initiative calls for ensuring parents make sure they have the support and services that they need. Family involvement during preschool is linked with stronger pre-literacy skills, math skills, social skills, and a positive attitude. So over the next 5 years, we'll connect families to a range of services and training opportunities to help them support their children's education. We'll expand our home visiting program and build on innovative community partnerships in places like East St. Louis, Aurora, North Lawndale, and in Marion. Once our Birth to 5 initiative is fully implemented, mothers will be connected with prenatal care to ensure the healthy birth and development of their children. Children in Illinois will have access to quality early learning starting at birth, and parents will have the tools to lead their children towards success in school, college, careers, and beyond. Illinois can lead the nation in early childhood education. We already have the foundation in place, and now is the time to get the job done for Illinois' littlest. Giving our children the best start in life will lead to a stronger economy. But if our economy doesn't work for hardworking families, if it doesn't build the middle class, then our job is not done. The foundation of a strong economy is a strong middle class. In Illinois, we believe that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you deserve a fair shake. Every person, no matter what challenges he or she faces, deserves an opportunity. And that's why a big part of our blueprint today is ensuring all Illinoisans have the opportunity to pursue their dreams and enter the middle class. Building the middle class means keeping families in their homes. Thousands of hardworking Illinois families were in danger of losing their homes in the Great Recession. But we worked to fight foreclosure and promote affordable home ownership. We launched the Illinois Hardest Hit program to help working families keep their homes. More than 11,000 families in nearly every county in our state have received the foreclosure prevention support they needed. We also launched Welcome Home Heroes to give military families an opportunity to buy a home after sacrificing so much to protect our freedom. Thanks to Welcome Home Heroes, 1,150 military families have accessed more than $140 million to help buy their homes. And we haven't forgotten about our neighbors with developmental disabilities. That's why we financed more than 2,100 new supportive housing units to provide individuals with disabilities more choices in their communities. And that's why we honor the example set by the students of Downers Grove North High School. They demonstrated last year what including everyone is all about. Ann Wagner, who has Down syndrome, missed her sophomore and most of her junior year in high school when she was diagnosed with leukemia. But her friends did not forget her. Her lifelong friend, Mary Doro, nominated Ann to be homecoming queen. And the students of Downers Grove North voted for Ann Wagner to be their homecoming queen. Ann and Mary, we're very proud of you. Building the middle class also means providing everyone with decent health care. Today, 144,000 more people have health coverage in Illinois who didn't have it a year ago. And many more will find coverage in the coming year through getcoveredillinois.gov. Thank you, Senator Heather Staines, Representative Sarah Feigenholz, Representative Lisa Hernandez, and Representative Mary Flowers for your health care leadership. This year, we really have a job to do for our fellow citizens who are making the minimum wage of $8.25 an hour. Our minimum wage workers are doing hard work. They're putting in long hours, yet in too many instances, they are living in poverty. That's not right. That's not an Illinois value. That's not a fair shake. This is all about dignity and decency. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. It's time to raise Illinois' minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. Raising wages for workers who are doing some of the hardest jobs in our society is not just the right thing to do, it's also good for our economy. According to the Federal Reserve, for every dollar increase in the minimum wage, workers spend an additional $2,800 in their local communities. Minimum wage workers do not admire money in a bank vault. They spend it quickly and locally. A shot in the arm to our Main Street businesses. Let's get this job done and make our economy work for working families. And another way to help our working families is the Earned Income Tax Credit, a tax credit that President Reagan once said was the best anti-poverty, the best pro-family, the best job creation measure we could devise. In the last 5 years, we've doubled this tax relief for Illinois working families. And over the next 5 years, we should double it again. When more people enter the middle class, our economy grows. And one more thing. 43% of all workers in Illinois, more than 2.5 million people, have no right to a single earned sick day. Among our low-wage workers, the problem's even worse. 80% of low-wage workers don't receive any earned sick days. And we need to do something about this. We should provide at least 2 earned sick days for every worker in Illinois. We need to help our workers, especially our single parents, avoid that awful choice, dragging themselves from a sick bed to work or losing a day's pay, or maybe even their job. More than 70 years ago, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It's whether we provide enough for those who have too little." This, too, is about dignity and decency. Let's get this job done for working families in our state. 5 years ago, this very day, I stood before you and I asked for your prayers. Illinois was in a state of emergency, and there was no quick exit. There were no easy solutions. Recovery would require tough medicine and unpopular decisions, and it would take time. But by tackling hard issue after hard issue and never giving up, we are getting the job done. Illinois is making a comeback. The ratings agencies are sending positive signals for the first time in recent memory. The backlog of bills is going down. Unemployment is at its lowest point since the economy crashed. And according to the most recent Federal Reserve Bank report, in the next 6 months, Illinois is projected to have the best economic growth of the 5 largest states in America. Of course, we have financial challenges still ahead. And we'll be talking about the best way to meet those challenges in the upcoming budget. But the fact is, our recovery is strengthening every day. And we're leading that recovery in a way that cares for working families. Pope Francis has urged all of us to say no to a financial system which rules rather than serves. Say no to an economy of exclusion and inequality. Say no to a world in which the powerful feed upon the powerless. The Pope's right. Illinois is best served when we build and protect the middle class, when we open the door to those struggling to join the middle class. And by following the steps that I've outlined here today, creating more jobs, making early childhood education a top priority, and building an economy that works for everyone, we can create a stronger economy than ever before and reform Illinois for the next generation. So I ask today for your partnership. Together, we've weathered the worst man-made storm in our state's history. We've led Illinois' comeback, one hard step at a time. We've worked to repair decades of damage, and we're getting the job done. Let's keep our shoulder to the wheel and finish that job. Let's make the will of the people the law of the land. Thank you.
Illinois Governor Pat Quinn speaking about 40 minutes here as he delivered his 5th annual State of the State message. Hi, I'm Jak Tichenor along with Amanda Vinicky of Illinois Public Radio. Amanda, the governor says that we've been tried and we've been tested over the last 5 years, but Illinois has turned a corner. We're making a recovery. Your view of his speech today?
So the theme of this speech, Jak, Illinois is making a comeback. I expect that we're going to hear a lot of retorts as soon as you and I are done and we begin speaking with the Republicans who are running for office, as well as Quinn's own opponent in the Democratic primary, Theo Hardeman, who are going to say, no, 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 Illinois has not gone far enough. You speak about the jobs that have been created. You talk about foreclosure programs. Sorry, Illinois is still way at the bottom when it comes to the unemployment rate being too high. Nonetheless, I think Quinn clearly a turnaround from some of his previous speeches, the really memorable ones when, for example, he went off the cuff and called himself Soy Boy. He followed the script here. He had practiced. He hit all the high notes, which is exactly what we expected out of this speech. He wasn't going to touch on Illinois' financial troubles. He was going to say how great the state's done.
And he pulled people out of the audience to punctuate every point he was making. Success stories thanks to early childhood education, thanks to people working hard and doing the right thing and learning.
And notably, those were the standing ovations there. I mean, the speech began with thanks to, for example, service members that have been out in all the natural disasters that Illinois has had, and, a homecoming queen from a suburban high school who has Down syndrome. They got the standing ovations, not really Pat Quinn himself. That may be because, much as he tried to highlight an optimistic agenda, again, everybody knows what Illinois is facing, and that's the tough budget. This was not a budget speech.
We're going to find out more about
that at all.
We're not talking about the 800-pound gorilla, which is whether or not that temporary income tax continues past 2015.
He didn't make any mention of that.
He talked a good deal about rebuilding the middle class, starting with early childhood education, starting with raising the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour, doubling the state's earned income tax credit.
Sick days for people who are making the minimum wage, something that is, of course, a huge issue for people that, don't get an automatic 2 weeks vacation time whenever they go on a job. So, yes, he hit those notes. We've got to remember as we listen to this speech, anytime you have a State of the State speech, it's going to be a governor trying to put his best face on a situation, although in the past we have heard the governor and Governor Quinn kind of deal with realities. He touched, for example, on this is the 5-year anniversary to the day that he first became governor, which is pretty remarkable. And so he put a good face on it, but again, he's a guy that is looking for re-election, so these are all things that are going to do great with his base. He does have Democratic supermajorities to work with, so when you look at things like the minimum wage, he has a good chance with this General Assembly. Again, however, it could be a difficult matter because that minimum wage increase does not play well, for example, with the small businesses. He's trying to help them by lowering the limited liability corporation fee that they pay from $500 to only $40. He said that'll make it the lowest in the nation. So throwing a bone to the business community, I don't know if that's going to do it. They still don't want that minimum wage increase.
Did President Obama's call for raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour for federal contractors help or hurt his chances here today?
I'm not sure it has much of an effect. If you remember, President Obama also called for an increase in the minimum wage federally last year at his own State of the Union speech, an idea that Quinn at the time embraced. We've seen Quinn try to increasingly make a bigger deal out of that starting from December, likely tied to, again, his re-election. Can't hit on that enough. And so it may, I'm not sure Obama's call for that really makes a difference either way. Illinois already has a minimum wage higher than the federal one.
You know, we're still waiting, of course, for that budget speech, which is February 19th.
At least for now. We'll see.
Not too long ago, not too long from now, at least, as far as we know. And that whole issue of whether or not the income tax will be raised at some point in 2015. Otherwise, billions of dollars of holes in the budget. I see some of our next guests are arriving. Amanda Vinicky, hey, thanks so much for your time on Illinois Lawmakers and adding your expertise.
Thank you, Jak.
We appreciate it. Up next on Illinois Lawmakers, we'll have the Republican response to today's State of the State message from Governor Pat Quinn.
For the past 5 years, we've rebuilt, one hard step at a time, and we've been getting the job done. Illinois is making a comeback. First, we restored integrity to state government, passing a strong new ethics code, campaign finance reform, and a new constitutional amendment to allow voters to recall any governor guilty of corruption. When I took the oath of office, state government hadn't properly invested in our infrastructure in 10 years. But within 10 weeks, we passed the largest construction program in Illinois history. So far, we've built and repaired 7,595 miles of road, 1,311 bridges, and 978 schools. 5 years ago, Illinois did not guarantee equal rights to all couples. Our state did not even provide civil unions. Today, we embrace full marriage equality. It's the law of the land. And unlike our predecessors, we've made the tough calls to balance our budget. We cut more than $1 billion in state spending. We overhauled our Medicaid program to save taxpayers over $2 billion. And even as we took hard steps to return Illinois to sound financial footing, we did it with compassion, preserving the safety net to protect the most vulnerable. We also accomplished comprehensive pension reform, something that no governor or legislature had been able to do. Previous governors and legislators from both parties created the pension crisis.
And welcoming now to the program, Senate Republican leader Christine Radogno of Lemont and House Republican leader Jim Durkin of Western Springs. Good to have you back here. An upbeat Governor Quinn today, recounting a lot of the accomplishments over the past 5 years when we were in, as he's put it, the perfect storm of all kinds of dire problems. Your reaction from the Republican side of the aisle?
Well, you know, his analogy to the storm, man-made storm, was interesting. I think it was largely a political speech, which we expected. At the end of the day, I think it's a little premature to declare victory at this point, particularly when we've just learned that we are the lowest in terms of expected job creation. We're still within the top 5 in unemployment. There's a lot of work left to do. He did reference some good themes, but I think we need to look at the track record in terms of implementing things. He referenced Medicaid reform, yet we've seen that systematically chipped away at. So we have to look behind the words on a speech like this.
Leader Durkin.
Well, I agree with Chris in her analysis. This is an election year, and I think it's going to be upbeat, as it usually is. I think the governor has some grand proposals. We have a budget address coming up shortly, and I'd like to know how we're going to pay for some of these programs. A lot of these things they're wonderful goals if we can accomplish it, but we also have to find a revenue source. But if we don't, where is it going to cut into? So these are things that need to be hashed out. I also need to remind Illinoisans that we are still at 8.6% unemployment. Only Rhode Island and Nevada are worse than Illinois. So we just lost the Cancer Center Treatments of America within the last day or two because of an unfriendly business climate in Illinois. So we need to move very slowly and delicately when we are going to place any type of additional burdens upon our businesses and mainly our small businesses.
Well, to those points, Leader Durkin, let's talk about a couple of the specifics in here. He's talking about raising the Illinois minimum wage from, I believe it's $8.25 to at least $10 an hour. He's also talking about doubling the earned income tax credit for low-income and middle-income people.
Well, I think that, with respect to the minimum wage, it's become part of the national debate, and I think it's rather ironic it's during an election year that we see it. It's kind of a gotcha issue. However, I've stated that if there is going to be a sincere move to increase the minimum wage in Springfield, I think it should be one that is negotiated between the business community and also organized labor. I think that's the fair and responsible way of moving about that, and I hope we get there.
Would the members of the House please take their seats?
I think we also need to remember that things like the minimum wage, the earned income tax credit, are not the way to lift people out of poverty. The way to lift people out of poverty are good, high-paying, private sector jobs where we have folks well prepared to take those jobs. That's where the emphasis needs to be.
We were just talking before we took the air, Leader Radogno, about the Republican candidates debate last week. One of the themes that came out of that was doing something. You can hear Speaker Madigan there. If you can't, I don't know how you couldn't. One of the themes that came out of that, though, was more work on workers' compensation reform. What are some of the things you feel you could work with the Democrats on?
Well, obviously, they recognize the jobs climate here. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so concerned about trying to provide for people that don't have jobs. So we're going to try to build on that, regardless of who's in the governor's mansion, to pursue workers' comp reform, to pursue sound reforms to the state budget, to lower spending so people have more money in their pocket.
In terms of some of the other points, a comprehensive early childhood education program from pre-birth actually all the way to preschool.
It's a lofty goal. Again, I understand what the governor is trying to accomplish, but again, there's a dollar figure that needs to be assessed, whether or not the state of Illinois or local governments or local schools will be on the hook for the finances of it. I mean, these are all, again, worthwhile goals, maybe a bit lofty, but the fact is there's a dollar amount that we have to be mindful of as well.
And remember, children that don't live in homes that are in poverty generally have access to those kinds of things, prenatal care, early childhood education. We need to make sure that families have access to jobs so that they're not in a situation that the only way they can get help is from the government.
Speaking of finding those revenue streams to pay for a lot of the ideas he was talking about today, what's going to happen at the end of 2014 as the calendar year rolls around to 2015 and the 67% income tax increase expires?
Well, this is the temporary tax that was sold to Illinois as a way to pay off our bills to our vendors, and we haven't come close to it. We're still at about $6 billion, maybe a little bit less than our unpaid bills to state vendors. But I've made a commitment when I took on this job that I will work with the Democrats to find a responsible budget, one that is that we don't spend more money than we take in. But we've had a problem over the years with it. But Senator Radogno and myself are working quite well with the Democrats on a number of issues. But the fact is, we're not going to walk away from the table. But the fact is, it has to be some responsible cuts within government. There just haven't been over the years.
When you say not walk away from the table, could there be some Republican support found for extending that income tax increase?
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that we will listen. We will see if there's creative ways in which we can make this budget more responsible and leaner. I think that our caucus, I'll be quite frank, will look unkindly upon extension of the tax increase, though.
Leader Radogno?
And of course, the governor is charged with presenting a budget to the legislature. He knows full well that the tax is set to sunset. It will be interesting to see his budget presentation and how he intends to handle that. That's typically how we begin the budget process with the governor's plan. One of
the big accomplishments he pointed to was something you were all involved in, and that was passage of pension reform. This week, of course, yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before, the state's largest employee unions, public employee unions, filed an appeal basically saying that thing was unconstitutional. You're impairing pension rights and benefits. So you could have another $1 billion hole blown in the budget if the Supreme Court votes against you.
Well, it was critical that we get something before the court. We did the very best we could to make sure the bill was crafted in the most constitutional way possible. So I think we've taken the first step. I do not believe that it is unconstitutional. We will find that out, and if it is, hopefully have some guidance from the court as to what pieces of it we can maintain.
Jack, for the last 2 years, all the interested parties have taken in painstaking efforts to research and do the legal research on each one of these particular proposals. We feel confident that a sufficient foundation has been made and a record to sustain the challenge before the Supreme Court. Let's be perfectly honest with you, there will be probably a circuit court opinion that strikes down SB 1. We have anticipated it, so I would suggest that we consolidate these actions. Let's get a quick review before the Supreme Court as quick as we can.
There's some movement on the Democratic ranks here about trying to move Illinois from a flat tax to a progressive income tax, and it's, of course, widely opposed by the folks on your side of the aisle.
That is a non-starter with the House Republicans, plain and simple.
Yeah, and it is with the Senate Republicans as well, and frankly, amongst many Democrats too. Remember, they want more revenue. It's a tax increase. It is not just a rearrangement of taxes.
But the argument is for most Illinoisans, most low and income Illinoisans, it's going to end up result in a tax cut.
Well, small businessmen are the one, and small businessmen and women are the ones who will feel the brunt of it, and that will be the death knell for business development and job growth in Illinois if we do pass a graduated tax.
And thank you both for your time on Illinois Lawmakers. We certainly appreciate it. That we will be back on February 19th at 12 noon. That's a Wednesday for coverage of Governor Pat Quinn's budget address to a joint session of the Illinois General Assembly here on Illinois Lawmakers. Thanks for joining us. So long from Springfield.